The following episode of the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters was originally broadcast on March 26, 2024.
It's time now for Business Matters, brought to you by Mokulele Airlines. Now here's your host, Pam Tumpop. Good morning, Pam. How are you this morning?
Hey, Gary, I'm great. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great.
It is a beautiful day up country. The sun is shining, and
The birds are chirping.
The sun is shining. You know, it's like a Cinderella moment.
Yeah.
You know, the birds are chirping, the sun is shining. It's like a Disney movie.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
And you're the princess.
Oh. Well, that's what my father used to call
There
me,
you go.
but he was great. Well, it's great to be on the show. I want to thank you, Gary, for all you do for Business Matters, and we truly appreciate all of you who are listening in this morning. We are going to have a great morning. We're going to have our fingers crossed. We hope to have Curtis Brown. Many of you may have heard of Curtis. He is with FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. He is the Deputy Federal Coordinating Officer, and he has been working so hard, boots on the ground on Maui, throughout our recovery program. From very early on, he's been with us for months on end, and helping us as we navigate our recovery. So we are looking forward to talking to him this morning and talking about some of the things that, they have been working on. And, of course, one of those big things has been, first of all, getting people housed and getting people housed in the hotels. And now they've been working on that program to migrate people from the hotels and into, rented properties that FEMA has been able to acquire so people can transition into those properties. And we're hoping to get a little bit of an update. I know that's been a little slower than they've hoped, and here's some of the things that they've run into as they've navigated through that program, and then talk further about next steps and new housing, temporary housing, and other housing units that can be made available. So while Gary tries to connect with Curtis, and as soon as he does, we'll bring Curtis onto the show. I wanted to just go over some of the other things that we're really excited about and wanted to draw people's attention to. You might have already heard that yesterday was a big day for us, and that is when Mayor Bisson presented his budget proposal for fiscal year 2025 to the members of the Maui County Council. So every year the mayor presents to the county council, and last year, his first budget, they received accolades for their budget presentation, and by the picture that I'm looking at with a bunch of smiling council members and the mayor, and a beautiful cover on the proposal, it looks like they've done it again. So really, this is the time that we really want to call people's attention to the budget. We always, as a Chamber of Commerce, encourage that the community be very aware of what's in the budget. Of course, it goes through a two-step process where the mayor first presents his budget proposal, and then the council reviews that budget proposal and can make changes or add in things and modify that proposal to come up with a final budget. And of course, Yukile Sugimura is our budget chair, did an excellent job last year, and stands ready to go through the process again. This year, the budget, the proposed budget, total budget is $1.697 billion. It includes $1.075 billion in operating expenses, $180.2 million in capital improvements, $379.4 million in grant revenue, and $75 million in revolving funds. So this budget includes an estimated revenue from all sources in the fiscal year 2025 budget. So all of the revenue that they expect to raise is $1.634 billion. And that includes some outside revenue that they are looking to receive as a result of the wildfires and some of the recovery measures. So the proposed budget reflects approximately $153 million increase in operating funds. And they said with 95.3% of that, approximately $146 million, attributed to wildfire-related departmental expenses. So you can see that, costs go up every year, just as they do in business. Our county costs go up every year. But we've seen some extraordinary costs as well go up as a result of the wildfires. And this is at a time as well when we're in this precarious time, because we also know that there are many lawsuits that are looming, and the county and state are self-insured. So that's something that we'll be watching as we move forward this year, as we see those lawsuits move forward. But one of the things that, they have proposed in this budget is, really looked at ways to make our community more resilient. They recognize that we've had increased costs for wildfire recovery, but they've worked with each department to exercise fiscal restraint in the county, looking at their operating budget, seeing how they can be as careful as possible. But as they look at the wildfires expenses, they are seeing that 1.2% increase in all departmental budgeting, operational budgeting, was done. But that was done because they again have other expenses that are going up. So really excited to see how this moves forward. The mayor noted as he shared this budget that it was constructed to address Maui County's recovery efforts and critical housing and infrastructure challenges, and it ensures that ongoing projects and current services continue to be provided, as well as addresses preparedness and mitigation efforts for future disasters to make sure that the people of Maui Nui are safe. And so with this, recognizing the huge demands on the county, both their human capacity and financial resources during the wildfires, we got to see in the mayor's State of the County address, well, it began with a very moving memorial for those who have been lost as a result of the wildfires. But what we also got to see before this budget was released was just the tremendous rescue and recovery, how they were working tirelessly to provide people with food and shelter and supplies. They've been working tirelessly on debris removal and now looking at infrastructure repair and replacement. And, many of these efforts now are continuing and budgeted for in 2025. So, this is going to be a very unusual budget year for us, but unlike anything we've seen before. And so, we always encourage people to look into the budget and understand what's included in this year's budget, and also look at it from the standpoint of both as a community member and as a business owner, if you're a business owner or an employee of a business, looking at this and understanding, how the funds are spent, and are they directed at things that, are in your top priority list? Are they directed at things that you feel are important and needed? We're going to see money going to, related departmental expenses for updating systems like communication systems for the police department that, we've seen as a result of the wildfire we want to improve. Increasing 29 frontline firefighter positions for our fire and public safety department. Planning, designing, and construction of a new Haiku fire station, and including a new pumper truck, adding a dedicated water tank for Napili. I hope we're also going to look at funding for an Oluwala fire station. West Maui Taxpayers Association has been working on this for quite some time. We're looking at a new off-road mini pumper assigned to Kihei, Makawao, and Wailea. So they're going to get several pumpers there to make sure that we've got additional capacity for fires in those areas as well. Staffing personnel in Molokai and Lanai and Hana for enhanced responses in those areas. And one of the things we learned during COVID was that Hana had one ambulance. And that was really surprising for me at that time, because what I didn't realize is, that, you think about how remote Hana is, but one ambulance in Hana meant that if a visitor was injured, maybe they were hiking and they had a fall, or, if they broke their arm, and that ambulance went to respond to that visitor call, and, a resident in Hana that had some sort of tragedy, that ambulance would already be deployed. So, these are the kinds of things that when we look at a budget, we look at and say, okay, how are we achieving some of these, these needs, and making sure that we've got that improved response in those areas, particularly our remote areas. So we're thrilled to see additional positions added there, and we'll be looking more into all the different things included in the budget. Again, it was just announced yesterday. And I think it's also important, they've also had to put additional positions in the Department of Corporation Counsel for wildfire-related information requests, as well as increased legal matters. And that will be something that is going to be one of the things we'll be watching this year, because that will change a lot of different things as we learn more about what occurs from the lawsuit in terms of how things get paid for, where liability is with that. We're going to be looking at the budget. This also includes $115 million, which was a request from the county to the state, and it includes a bridge loan from Hawaii Community Foundation of $54.5 million to directly support recovery efforts, including housing and infrastructure. Something extremely important to us at the Chamber of Commerce, and I believe to our entire community, something that we hear the most about. In addition to that, they talked about in this budget the general excise tax revenues of $45 million, and where they're going to be put and what they're going to support. And a lot of that is dedicated to water, major water and wastewater projects, including Molokai Reliable Capacity Water Project on the Lanai Wastewater Reclamation Facility, a Kamaoli Water Treatment Plant filter upgrade, a North Kihei Mauka transmission system, and additionally, County Council is looking to direct about 20% of GET funds to help with the Department of Hawaiian Homeland's infrastructure project. You might realize that they have received tremendous money from the state and have an urgent issue to build more housing on Hawaiian homeland. And so with building housing, of course, there is a need for concrete infrastructure capacity. So that is another area where we're seeing general excise tax money being used. And they also cover, and this is, always something where people are interested in as we look to our visitor industry, what that industry, means to our community in the tax revenue that we've received from it. Because often, as we look at the industry, especially during COVID time, it started really during COVID times. We kind of looked, and when we didn't have as many visitors here, we kind of saw a different Maui, a more relaxed Maui, a Maui that, like the early 80s in my view. But also it's important to remember, how many jobs are reliant on the visitor industry, how much tax revenue that industry brings in that shores up our community. So this year they're looking at that tax revenue, and that share of $60 million is going to be critical in supporting growing community needs through the general fund. So, we already know that we're going to really need to use that money to help our community, sustain our community, and be more resilient moving forward. The budget proposes an increase of $429.2 million, which represents a 33.9% increase from the $1.268 billion budget that was proposed for fiscal year 2024 and adopted by the County Council. And this increase, again, is primarily due to wildfire recovery costs and also the establishment of the Department of OED Resources and the East Maui Water Authority, budgeted at $1.8 million. And the bifurcation of the Department of Housing and Human Concerns, which were adopted by the County Council and voted into approval by residents in 2022. And that's, that was one of those charter amendments, if you may recall. In the 2022 election, we had a lot of work going on. We had a charter commission who worked tirelessly on many different charter amendments. And now we're seeing how that will be actually enacted and affected with that Department of Housing and Human Concerns splitting into two different departments. So we're going to have housing that will work on getting housing units built and addressing our housing crisis. And we'll have the Housing and Human Concerns area as well that will continue to look at those with housing needs and need placement issues or help with housing, getting housing in, HUD housing or those who want to work and make their units available for HUD housing. So really helping with the housing and human needs and serving that population, while also with this bifurcation, pushing us forward as we need to catch up, as we're so far behind and still in a housing crisis, and helping us get more workforce housing and housing designed and built for different AMI levels, which is our area median income level that people can afford, and get people in stable housing there, as well as address, I'm sure we'll be spending a lot of time addressing, of course, housing that we need as we rebuild Lahaina. With the East Maui Water Authority, it will oversee the Nahiko, Kenai, and Honumanu, as well as Lilo license areas, and is responsible for investigating, acquiring, managing, and controlling water collection and delivery systems. Another additional expense is the new division of the Office of Recovery, and that office provides staffing and a framework to lead the implementation of best practices for wildfire recovery efforts in 6 focus areas: community planning, housing, infrastructure, natural, historical, and cultural resources, economic resiliency and health, and social service systems. So they have a lot of work that will be required under that arena now, under the Office of Recovery, because this is going to be a long haul, and we want to make sure that we rebuild thoughtfully. We want to make sure that we take the entire community into consideration as we move forward and re-envision and reimagine. And there's so many different efforts going on. So we've got a county office of recovery that will be leading the way. We've got the mayors and the governors, Maui Economic Recovery Commission, which has over 100 people involved, looking at not doing but providing ideas and areas of many suggestions and thoughts on where we feel there are different opportunities and move forward. And so we're excited to know that we've got this office in place and that they'll be going through so much information and helping to guide our community as we plan forward. And then we have so many different ways that the departments are going to be ringing in and educating the council as the council goes through the budget. This is one of those processes that goes to about May. So here we are in March, and now we've got the mayor's budget, and the next part is really open to a lot of community participation as the council goes through different elements of the budget. You'll be seeing, what they're going to be covering and what you can weigh in on. And we really want to encourage you to take a look. Now, in the press release that I found from yesterday, the public is encouraged to visit the county website and to get a copy of the budget. And if you go to www.mauicounty.gov/budget, so that's www.mauicounty.gov/budget, it says you can view the budget and the budget presentation online. I didn't see the link. It does go to the budget office. There is information about the budget process, lots of great information about the community process where people have had a chance across Maui, Molokai, and Lanai to ring in and share with the mayor and his team the kinds of things that they wanted to see in the budget. But I didn't yet see the budget link itself. So, again, this was just yesterday, but you take a look. You can also find the information on this press release if you just go to the main homepage at mauicounty.gov, and you can find more information about this press release. But they will post the actual budget online, and once you do, you're going to see it's a wealth of information. And for those who had a chance to go ring in, it's a great opportunity to look up areas that you had concerns about or shared about, maybe new things you wanted to see put in the budget. This will be your opportunity. I know they had to, we understood that, again, they had to be very careful. There are certain expenses that go up that you have to make an increase for from year to year. But I know they're being very careful with the budget and also making cuts in certain areas of the program to save money in some areas to be able to continue to expand in other areas. So I encourage you to go to the county website, take a look. You can also, the mayor's presentation of the budget was filmed on Akaku, so you can find that at www.akaku.org. But take a look. This is going to be, in the 17 plus years I've been at the chamber now, I think this is going to be the most important budget that we're ever going to take a look at. It's a huge budget. It comes at a time when our recovery is critical. And so this is the time when we really want to encourage people to, if you've never looked at the budget before, just kind of get an overview and take a glance. There are going to be so many detailed charts that are going to show you everything from how they arrive at the GET, General Excise Tax, I said GET, which is State General Excise Tax. I meant the RPT, which is the real property tax, how they arrive at the real property tax revenue, which is county collected revenue. GET is our state collected revenue. But we have the ability to charge a portion of GET now that we can use that for housing and housing infrastructure. So we are doing some GET revenue as well as real property tax revenue. But you're going to be able to find charts on how they're doing that, how they're estimating the transient accommodations tax, where they're spending the money, what projects are getting what kinds of money, what nonprofits in this community. You can learn all about what the nonprofits do and, to what degree the county supports those nonprofits in delivering services back to our community. You're going to learn about projects that, are held for the community's benefit, for a variety of different activities, from arts and culture to economic development projects like the Made in Maui County Festival each year, and so many more. So it's a great opportunity to understand the budget, and it tells the story. And I think this year, as you learn about the budget, it's really going to tell a story about what we've gone through in Lahaina, what lessons we've learned, what things we're trying to do. And it comes at a time when we also are just understanding that even our state legislature everybody's grappling with this recovery and this resiliency and what kinds of things we need to put in place and trying to grapple with, how long it's going to be, how much is it going to cost, understanding there are other changes happening across the nation, and we live in an island state. Costs are rising. So this is a time when, we really kind of want to get a handle on how we spend our money. Not only, how we spend our money through the county, but how we spend our money at home, how we continue to insulate our community, how we continue to build capacity in our community, support our local businesses, keep our jobs growing here in Maui County, how we can put in needed services and housing to get our families that have been displaced, comfortable, secure, back to work. And this is going to be one of the most important budgets, I think, I've ever seen at the county level. So I encourage you to join me. It's a fascinating journey. It's a big read. If you're one of those people who likes to dive in like we do at the Chamber, dive in. But you'll get a lot even if you just sort of look at it at a cursory level. That there is a high-level overview every year that is not part of the 100 pages or more. I don't know how many pages this year's budget proposal is, but there's a high-level, summary of the budget. And that's a great read, even if you just read those few pages. You'll learn so much more about our county. And you learn a lot about the mayor and his administration and the team and the priorities that they're putting forward. So it's a great thing to get engaged with, and we hope you will enjoy doing that. And just again, you can find it on the county's website at mauicounty.gov/budget, but maybe give them a day, or maybe it'll be posted later today. So check there, or you can always reach out to that office and find out more about when the link's posted or where it might be posted. I'm just pulling this from the press release. So what we're going to do, I know we are trying to reach Curtis of FEMA, and, given the work he does, I'm not sure what he might be doing, but there have been a lot of disasters lately that, as we talk to regularly with the Small Business Administration and work with them, there's been a lot of new declarations with recent tornadoes and other disasters. So he might have got called into other meetings, or he might be dealing with something here locally. So we're going to take a quick break and hear from Mokulele Airlines, and then we'll be right back, and we'll try and see if we can connect with Curtis Brown, who is our Deputy Federal Coordinating Officer here on the ground right on Maui, helping us. And if we don't get to catch Curtis, I'll be sharing some more information about what's been going on with housing and a new bill that passed the county council. So we'll be back shortly in just probably 60 seconds.
Mokulele Airlines operates the largest commuter airline hub in the country, right here in Kahului. Fly Mokulele from Kahului to Molokai, Lanai, Hana, Waimea, Kona, and now Hilo. Mokulele also operates the only flights between Kapalua and Honolulu. There is never a middle seat on Mokulele, and every seat has a window and aisle. Visit mokuleleairlines.com and take your next flight from the newly renovated Mokulele Terminal.
All right, welcome back. Are you there, Pam?
I'm here. Okay. Well, Gary and I also just had a quick moment to talk while the commercial ran, and we're not sure if we're going to be able to get Curtis on. We can't seem to connect with him on his phone, but hoping that we'll find out later that everything is A-okay. But in the meantime, I wanted to share a little bit about a bill that passed through the county council to approve emergency permitting for expedited housing in Lahaina and upcountry. One of the biggest things that the Chamber's been working on now for years, started in 2017 when we understood we had a housing crisis of over, 14,000 units short, and then we made some improvements, and, we still had a housing crisis in 2019 and continued to do another forum and came up with, again, ways to how we can continue to improve. And every forum we do, it comes down to looking at permitting and the long permitting process. And, when it comes to housing, of course, these days, housing materials and supplies are going up. But the biggest thing that has always plagued housing is the length of our permitting process. And when I first joined the Chamber, again, over 17 years ago, this was something that has been discussed every election cycle that we've ever sat through as we've talked to candidates for office. We always get down to talking about permitting, how we're going to expedite permitting. Every couple of years, we have council members and other legislators at the state level traveling to different areas, seeing different housing models, examining permitting processes. We've heard everything from permits taking, in the old days, it's getting better now. We have the MAPS program, and that's a tremendous help. But back when I first started the Chamber, we had really lengthy permitting processes. And not all of them were lengthy because, of course, you have projects of different size and scale, or you have different issues associated with each project. But Hawaii is known just overall for sort of a longer permitting process. The council members would get, and not only council members, state elected officials as well, would go in and look at these processes in other counties, other states, even other countries, and find other ways of doing things. And I always remember stories of people coming back and saying, gosh, we saw how it could be done in 2 months. Or people would come back and say, their permits are all getting through within 2 weeks. We even had somebody say, hey, we visited this county and they were getting things done in 2 days. They brought the whole team in and, they hammered out one review and got everything ready, and then, they could issue the permit if everything was solved in a matter of 2 days. So, again, we used to say 2 days, well, that might be unrealistic. And of course, you never know from county to county. To compare apples to apples, you'd have to look at the volume of the permits they're processing, the level of complexity, and so on. There's many different elements. So we know it's no easy task. But we also know that it can be done because we've seen many examples where, in fact, it has been done. And there have been many who've come back and who have correlated similarly sized counties and states with our county and our state, not necessarily, obviously, a tri-island county, because we're very unique in that. But they have correlated, the volume of permits, the type of permits, and we know that we need to continue to streamline the permitting process. And I know that the mayor and his team are working on that. And I know they even have a committee focused on that. So a group that is tackling that. And as I said, we used to call in on permit issues quite a bit, but with the MAPS program, you can track them online. And so if you have a permit and you're not familiar with that, or maybe your consultants are using your architects and your engineers or your builder, they're the ones currently using the MAPS program. Ask them about it and learn how you can go in and track your project, because it's really a phenomenal tool. But we need other tools in the toolbox, and that's what our forums always tell us. And so one of the exciting things is that Councilmember Tom Cook announced on March 8th, so a little over, about 2 weeks ago now, that the Maui County Council passed on final reading a bill for emergency construction permits to expedite housing development in Lahaina and upcountry Maui. So this was submitted by this bill. It's known as Bill 21, and it came about this year and passed this year out of the county council. It was submitted by the county's Department of Public Works in response to the August wildfires and was recommended for approval in an amended version by the Water and Infrastructure Committee, which he chairs. So they amended it slightly, and under the Building Code's emergency permitting process, driveway and grading permits would be consolidated with electrical and plumbing permits in a modified permit application. So now these applications will be reviewed and approved by a third-party vendor that will be selected and contracted by the Department of Public Works. We know, and we continue to hear how the county is short-staffed. So we really appreciate, not only are we streamlining the process through this, but now the Department of Public Works can also hire qualified third-party vendors to select and review the applications and to make sure that, all of the important protections are included, that we're following the law, that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. But that'll help us just in time move these things forward because, expedited housing in Lahaina and upcountry is really critical for those impacted by the wildfires. So, I also want to note that Councilmember Cook really commended the department for their responsiveness to our community over, of course, the past several months now. I guess we moved from several to many, really, at this point, the many months as we've been dealing with the wildfires and our recovery from that. And the level of their commitment, noting that recovery efforts require a multifaceted approach and that this bill is pursues multiple and parallel solutions to address the county's permitting process. So this is an awesome step in the right direction. And it will help get more housing opportunities. It also allows eligible property owners to exceed their previous building footprint. And owners of vacant land may construct ohana units to create homes for survivors. So we are not only streamlining the permitting process, but creating opportunities for expansion of properties currently, as well as creating ohana-type units on existing properties or even vacant land that somebody owns. So this is going to free up more opportunities for creating new housing that is desperately needed. And of course, approval of a permit application, one of the other things that I said of course, but I wanted to say that with respect to something else. I was misreading my notes for a minute. Approval of a permit application in this can be requested by the property owner if no action has been taken. So that is another thing in this bill that has been something that's been talked about for quite a period of time, which is if things were held up, rather than just allow the delay to continue, we want to move things forward. So now, if you have a permit application in and you're the property owner, if after 15 days, if everything's in and complete and you haven't seen any action, they can contract with those third parties. So those third parties can get things done. And so it's really important to now have this option where if it's not moving forward, again, time is money. And when it comes to building, that is super true. Delays really increase costs in a big way when you're talking about housing construction. So this is another great step that was included in the bill. Now, here's the of course part that I started to jump ahead. Of course, it's important to note that approvals may be withheld in cases where disaster debris removal is not complete, essential services are not restored, an agency review is required, so it's missing a step and it needs to get through an important step. A land use approval is pending, or public infrastructure improvements immediately adjacent to the property are pending. So in other words, you can get started on your permitting process in some of these fire areas. And if those things I just mentioned are not holding you up, then this bill can really expedite things. However, the county is still going to protect and ensure that that when they're expediting permits, that the land is ready and that it's inhabitable, and you have the right infrastructure so that when the unit is built, you're ready to occupy that unit and live in it. So again, while we are streamlining this process, we do want to also recognize that, there are still things as a result of the wildfires that we still must contend with. The debris removal is one of those critical things, of course. You're gonna need access to when you get back into a home. You're gonna need access to that critical water and sewer and infrastructure right there, and you're gonna need that available. So they're looking at this and making sure that essential services are restored so that you can actually move in. But this bill goes a long way in streamlining not only the permitting process, but also allowing for other units to be built in a way that can provide some temporary housing or even some long-term permanent housing for folks. So we encourage you, this again is Bill 21. It was passed by the county council. I don't know if the mayor signed the bill yet, but it would go for the mayor. It went to the mayor for signature. So we're excited to see this kind of effort, and we hope that throughout our recovery we see more things like this to move us forward, because this is just such a critical time for our community. Now, unfortunately, I'm not sure why, but we haven't been able to get Curtis on the phone, so we will be checking in with him later, and I know we'll have to reschedule him at this point. But I just wanted to share a little bit about some of the things that I know FEMA's been going through. And we've been working very closely with FEMA as they have worked to transition folks out of the hotel units and into these short-term rental units. And by short-term rentals, a lot of these are condotels. So these are not like illegal short-term rentals that were in housing areas. These were condominiums that are known as condotels that have been operated for visitor accommodations for a long time as hotels. Some of them have people who are residents that live full-time, and others are condominium short-term rentals. So I know they've contracted with a lot of those, and along the way as they were doing that, there's been some hiccups. I mean, we've all heard the stories about now how rental rates are going up, not just in West Maui with those units, because people are hearing about how much FEMA's been paying for rentals. The people are saying, at $9,000 a month, there were units we could have built somewhere else. And I can say that that is true, but there is a challenge of being ready and where we were going to build and where the infrastructure is, but there are housing units for that price point, over the course of a year that can be built for that period of time that will last 20 plus years, or can be moved. So, there's things that people have had, thoughts that they have been shared in social media and other places about how the different programs have been going. But what I want to say is, in my experience working with FEMA, is there's always a reason for decisions that they've made, and sometimes as they're making quick decisions, maybe we wish they met with a local group first, or met with us, or connected with some other resources. But they're always also quick to say, if we stepped too quickly in this direction, we want to learn from that. And how can we learn from that? And our goal is to encourage them as we move forward with housing to really work with the local community and get temporary housing units built by the local community, building capacity here in Maui County, working with our local developers and builders and our architects, our engineers, our plumbers, our painters, everything related to housing, whatever it is, cabinetry and more. There's a lot of people who want to help, and I've talked to some of the very large building industries on a national level, and they want to help too. And the great thing is, while they're not from here and they don't live here, but they have a love of Maui, but they also understand building in local capacity. When I talk to them and say, we're so grateful that you want to help, and there's a time when you can help, and we want your help, but we also really need to build in the local capacity and work with our team and have these folks assist in a way that continues to make sure that we, in this opportunity, train people and develop new industries and build in that economic diversity as we rebuild our community. And what's exciting is that they're willing to help. But as FEMA was, and I'm going to kind of just read some of the things I think that Curtis would have shared with you today, and we will get him back on the show when he can do it. I don't know what happened, but something must have come up this morning. But, as they were looking to move folks from hotels into, these other non-congregate sheltering programs, so as they were trying to move people into these rental units and condotels, which FEMA is actually the tenant, they're doing the rental, but getting people in housing where they could be together, they've got a kitchen, far more normalcy. And that's what they saw in these condotels, was they had an immediate asset where you had a sense of normalcy without having to wait for a building process. So as they've been trying to do that, they've kind of come up with a number of issues. One of them is that some people were ready to move and signed on to some of the leases but changed their mind. I know that there's always been issues with pets, and people they're still working really hard to try and get people reconnected with their pets. I know HARF is doing an amazing job holding on to those who have been displaced by the wildfires, holding on to their pets, and yet giving people time to reconnect with their pets as much as they can, but also knowing that when they can't, their pets are still secure. But we're trying to get to, that's why temporary housing for us at the Chamber is so important, because not only do you get to get back in a place, the temporary housing will allow you to be in a place where you can be for a number of years and not keep moving from one situation to another, get back to cooking together, family time together, playing outdoors together, having your pets with you again. All those things are so important. And so we've been working to try and get that done as well. So there's been a lot of things that FEMA's been up against, but as we've been working with them to connect them, we did about a month and a half ago at this point now, we did a sort of a speed dating session with local housing folks who could put up rapid units. And we showed them a variety of things. Some of them that we weren't necessarily recommending as a housing unit, although they could be. And, all rated for disasters, all have fire protection ratings and hurricane protection ratings for wind and units that would last over 20 years. So 2 generations of living, through there. We've also, recognized that we really wanted to showcase local capacity so that FEMA could see we have the capacity here. And, if there's capacity we don't have, then we can look to, if Maui County doesn't have it, then we can look to our state. And then we could look to other states or those who want to help. And sometimes the help, as I said, can come in the sense of not that they're going to come in and take over the construction work, but they can come in and work with our local contractors and maybe help, or if there's staffing shortages or other areas that they can help, or bring new expertise and teach us how to do things differently, or new technologies in housing. Then we can build that capacity in and carry that capacity moving forward. So FEMA's been really good about that. As a result of our listening session, one of the things that they did was they created a special session that was held a few weeks back in Kaanapali at the Westin, and it was to get builders and contractors and agencies who can compete for some of this work in building temporary housing to get registered with the federal government. To do business with FEMA, you have to get registered with SAMS.gov. SAMS, S-A-M-S, is the government system that actually I can't remember if it's SAMS with an S or SAM.gov, but you get registered, and then they walk you through a process of the different pieces of information you need to submit to be registered to work with FEMA and to qualify to apply for their RFPs, which is request for proposals. And now there's an RFP out. So what they did was, knowing that they were moving in this direction, they worked with us and many others. We were just a small piece of that pie, but we showed them some of the local capacity. They've been working, Curtis and his team, and Luke Myers from the governor's office and others, John Vieira of HIEMA. All of them have been involved in many different sessions, and they were involved in ours as well. And when they could see the local capacity, it just helps as they look to where we can all fit in. So they've prepared people to get ready for the RFP. The RFP is out this week. Go to FEMA's website, look for if you're in housing and can contribute in any way to helping to build temporary housing. Look for their new RFP. At the Chamber, we'll be sending it out. We just received it the other day, so we are sending that out to our members, and FEMA's got it posted and did a press release on it. So find it, and hopefully next week we can ask Curtis to join us and talk a little bit more about all their great work. But for now, I'm sorry you had a whole hour of me today, but I hope you've learned some things that you found interesting and learned more about the county budget process with the new bill to streamline permitting, and more about the great work FEMA's doing. They are getting people into those temporary housing units for 12 to 18 months. And in the meantime, we're moving forward looking at other housing that can house people for years. So I just want to say happy Tuesday, blessings and aloha to each of you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I hope you'll join us again next Tuesday. Ahui hu.